Yeah, thank you all for being here. Let me say once again, apologies for the technical difficulties yesterday, but I'm glad we can all come here today. So I'm going to be talking about the prompt repository, sort of building off both what Teo showed with chat notebooks just now and what Joffrey showed about programmatic use of Wolfram language on Tuesday. Quick agenda of what I'm talking about here for the rest of the seminar here. I'm going to recap what Joffrey showed just in case any of you weren't able to attend on Tuesday. I'm going to talk about the prompt repository, why we have it, although maybe you already understand just from seeing the previous show from Teo. I'm going to show how you can use prompts from the prompt repository programmatically, so building off of Joffrey's talk on Tuesday. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about sort of the interesting phenomena that go along with these predefined prompts from the prompt repository. Then we'll show how to use these prompts in chat notebooks. We already saw a little bit about personas, but there's multiple ways to use these prompts in chat notebooks, and I'm going to show more ways. And then I'm going to go into how you can create your own prompts. And then finally, in this coming soon section, I'm going to talk about tools. Teo briefly mentioned that he wasn't showing tools, which sort of made it a lot easier to understand some of the cool stuff he was showing. But tools are really exciting. So I'm going to explain what those are and show what's coming along those lines. So quick recap of what we hopefully saw on Tuesday. So all of these interactions with an LLM, like OpenAI's, can be done programmatically as well as they are in the chat notebook. So you can kind of send text to it just like you would if you were using ChatGPT in a web browser, and get responses back. But you can also sort of do it, programmatically. You can create a function. So this didn't actually contact any LLM. It's just a function that when you apply it to data will contact the LLM. So you can take a function, you can apply it to, multiple inputs and get multiple responses. So this sort of enters interacting with an LLM into the world of software and code. So far we're getting lucky and not hitting any traffic issues. All right, but sometimes it's not easy to come up with the right message, the right prompt to cause the LLM to behave the way you want it to generate the response that you're looking for. So it'd be real nice if there was a place where effective prompts were all collected and easy to find and use. And that is the prompt repository. So this is a new a new repository in the Wolfram ecosystem. It has a website. So here's the homepage of the prompt repository. You can see that we've divided prompts into 3 categories, and we will get into all of those later. He talked about Bernardo here. You can see each of these prompts has its own page where it has examples showing how to use it in a chat notebook or how to use it programmatically. All of this stuff can be used right away in Wolfram language anywhere in 13.2 or higher, and with a sort of zero setup. And we'll come back to sort of the website and what's available later on. But prompts in the prompt repository, like I just said, 13.2 or higher, but they're reviewed and tested for effectiveness. So this is an important point. We're not putting up any piece of text that anybody wants up there. These things have to work well. In general, they're templated. So it's not just text. It's text with template slots in it that allow you to quickly customize it while maintaining the effectiveness of the prompt itself. So, you can change it. We just have a translate prompt that can be set up for French or Arabic or any language. Within the language, they're mostly used via LLM prompt and LLM resource function. I'll get into both of those here in a minute. They're open source, so there's you can see the prompts. It's easy to find it. They're easy to create. I'm going to spend several minutes in the middle of this talk showing that. And then, as I'm about to show right now, they are seamlessly integrated. So LLM resource function is sort of the simplest way to use a prompt from the prompt repository programmatically. And it just takes the name. So like I said, we have translate. So what you get back here is an LLM function, which has, you can see there's 2 parameter slots. If we open this up, you can see the actual prompt right here with the slots in it. And, I can use this just like I would LLM function that we saw a minute ago and that you saw in Joffrey's talk, hopefully, to apply it to data, send it to the LLM, get back a response. And it all happens real quick. In case you're interested, right now I'm using GPT 3.5. So it's a little bit faster and a lot cheaper. And for these examples, I found that it works just fine. 4 usually works better for complicated examples or complicated use cases, but I'm using 3.5. So here's one where LM resource function, this Wolfram sample code prompt from the prompt repository isn't just a prompt. It isn't just text to send the LM. It also has a post-processing function, which we also call interpretation. So that it takes this group by, it applies it to a template, generates a prompt, sends that prompt to the LLM, in this case, GPT 3.5. It gets a response. And then before it gives the response back to me in this output, it runs post-processing, which in this case is converting the string into held code. I encourage you to always hold any code and not just blindly evaluate stuff an LLM sends you. But I can tell that this is safe, so I'll release the hold and the code runs. The code isn't perfect. It's going to have infinite loops in at least, but it also could, delete files on your computer or something. You can do anything if you just let it run. So be cautious. But once you sort of have these prompts that do more than just strings in and strings out, it's really easy and straightforward to build applications on top of them. So here is a prompt from the prompt repository called question, answer, assess. It takes a question and an answer, and it determines, using the LLM's neural network brain, whether the answer is correct for that question. And what it returns here is an assessment result object. This is a standard Wolfram language object. This isn't something that we created for this prompt. This has been part of the Wolfram language for a couple of versions now. So, it immediately just integrates into the Wolfram language, and you can use it just like you would any other assessment result object. So now you can, go further. Oh, first, let's make sure that the LLM isn't just accepting anything that kind of is semantically correct, right? There's some intelligence for it. You can ask it to explain why this answer is not correct, right? So the prompt tells it to include an explanation, and the explanations are pretty dang good. And now that we have this, we can kind of build a real tool on it, wrapping it question object, and it creates this nice little interface, and I can give it an answer. And so now we have this, large language model backed intelligence inside of this question object, which is really, really cool that you can easily create these advanced courseware tools right here in Wolfram language, backed by ChatGPT. Right, but sometimes you don't want this one-stop shop for a prompt in the prompt repository. Sometimes you want sort of more low-level access so you can build things yourself, and that's where LLM prompt comes in. So LLM prompt retrieves a prompt from the prompt repository, but doesn't communicate with the LLM. It just sort of gives access. So here is the prompt, and it's always returned as a template object. I can open this up and see the actual prompt again, same one as before. Now, instead of being an LLM function, it's a template object. So if you've used template objects, which have been part of Wolfram language for decades, you know how to use them. You can apply them to data. This will apply the defaults. In this case, this prompt has a default for the language, but it doesn't have a default for the text. So it's just leaving that one blank. right? You can, and in order to, when you're using LLM prompt, there's sort of two ways to fill parameter slots. You can either do it via the second argument of LLM prompt. So here I'm just giving one value that's going to fill the first slot. And this will return a template object again. It's not going to return the text directly. So it's leaving that second slot to be filled, but you can see it got renumbered. So now we have this this template object that's set up hard coded for Korean, where the text is the only thing to fill in. Now I can take this template object, apply it to data. I get the extra text. I can use LLM synthesize to send it to the LLM. And let's hope that's correct. I can't read or speak Korean. So if that's wrong, let me know in the chat. I can do the same thing kind of all in one go using LLM function along with LLM prompt. And sort of this is sort of the low-level building block that allows you to use prompts from the prompt repository to create your own thing. And this is, it turns out we're discovering a pretty powerful paradigm because it allows you to combine prompts and compose larger prompts from them, right? So you have prompts from the prompt repository, so you know that they have a behavior that they're trying to get from the LLM. And you know that they kind of work for that behavior when they're used alone. But maybe you want to combine those behaviors together to create a new prompt that does something new. And so, for example, you can say, a cheerleader. This is a persona that is cheerful and very excited about everything and tends to sing in songs. And you can say, I want it to be in a haiku, and then say something about baking muffins. And then, so this will, combine these prompts together, and they all work well together. Right. Very, very cheerful, very haiku, very muffiny. Here's another example where instead of going to LLM synthesize, we're using LLM function. So this is combining grade level students. So I want the response to be appropriate for a fourth grader, and summarize. So it's going to take some content and, summarize it, make it shorter. To get something that's definitely not fourth grade reading level, let's grab a random paragraph from War and Peace. Let's see. Let's give a couple tries to get something longer. There we go. All right. And let's summarize that paragraph for a fourth grader. There we go. Right. Yeah. Much easier to read War and Peace now. But I don't know if that's really how you should read War and Peace, but it's cool that you can do this so easily and just summarize complex content at whatever level you want. Right. So these prompts are ones I picked out that work well together, but not all prompts will work well together. As we've been sort of playing with this, and building this system, we've had to learn which prompts work well together, and we've kind of tried to figure out some of the basic principles about prompts and how to make a prompt modular, as I like to call it, which it's easily combined. And that's how we ended up coming up with these categories that you see in the prompt repository. So we've found that dividing things into these three categories, personas, modifiers, and functions, is really helpful. Tail showed a lot of personas in his talk, so I won't get too deep into that. But it tells the LLM who it is and who it should act like. So Wolfie is one of our code assistant prompts, and so it's all when I use that, it's always going to talk about Wolfram language code, and you can see this sort of formatting that's designed to work in chat notebooks that will come out here if you use it programmatically as well. But all this sort of nice formatting that doesn't look so nice here programmatically, but is great in chat notebooks. It's sort of built into the tool, right? Modifiers are prompts. They're similar to personas, but they're not so much a character. They just sort of change the way an LLM generates its response in sort of some generic way. And you can, so if I want to get some baseball statistics, which is usually something I want to do, but I want them to be computable. So I'm going to say, give me some statistics, but don't write out a long paragraph. Don't give me a bulleted list. Give me JSON, so I can, compute with it. Let's see. This is maybe giving me more statistics than I bargained for, or we're going to get a timeout. Let's give it till, okay. Yeah. So overloaded with requests. Let's count to 3 and then try again. I don't think counting to 3 helps, but I think it adds drama to the presentation. Let's see. There we go. All right. So there's some valid JSON. I can see there's this ... So if it weren't for that, I could probably just run import string on this and it would work. But that, I would have to delete that, and then I could import it and use all of the computational power of Wolfram language to do cool things. Functions, the third category of prompts in the prompt repository, are like the main action of a prompt, right? They're what's telling the LLM what to actually do. So we have here this one called code import that is telling it import this code to the Wolfram language. So we're saying this is JavaScript code, import it to Wolfram language. And you can see this, and it, like the example we saw before, it returns held code. So if I say release hold of held code, that will define the function and I can apply it. You can see in this case, it didn't just say transpose, right? There's a Wolfram language function transpose that does this. It's sort of reproducing the actual approach from the JavaScript code, which is really neat. It's kind of even more cool that it can do that. Right. So what we've learned from sort of categorizing prompts this way is there's sort of a maximum configuration of component prompts that you can put together when you're combining things. And that's basically one persona, one function, and any number of modifiers is sort of the maximum, right? You can't use more than one function together. You can't use more than one persona. And so when you're looking for things to combine, that certainly helps to sort of have this constraint in mind. And of course, that's the maximum. A lot of modifiers and prompts are mutually exclusive, right? You can't say return CSV format and JSON format, right? It just doesn't make sense. But a lot of them do work well together. And another thing to keep in mind was when I'm using, sometimes instead of combining, we say composing, right? So composing prompts is not like composing functions. It's not a nesting of their behaviors. It's a merging of their behaviors. So that, you can obviously nest behaviors just by writing code, right? You can wrap LLM function. You can nest LLM functions or wrap LLM synthesize operations, and you'll get that nesting behavior. All right. So now that we've kind of introduced these categories, it will allow me to show the other way to use prompts in a chat notebook. So, we've seen chat notebooks a lot already, and Teo showed how to use this persona menu to choose a persona, but you can also use a persona with the @ sign. So if I want to talk to Surfer Dude, I can say, what should I do later? I don't know. Maybe he'll tell me. I can't tell you what to do. Oh, yeah. There we go. Right. So I can access a persona with the @ sign just like I would sort of in any social media setting or, modern tech interface. But then we also have these modifiers. So if I, here, I had a fun example earlier. Let's see. See if I can find it. Oh, here, let's put in a chat divider here, and let's show how like something that's good at Wolfram language code can be helpful. So if I ask Bernardo, anything wrong with my code? it's going to work. Right, use it with its characteristic attitude, and it's doing a pretty good job here. Let's see. Let's put in another chat divider. Start a new thing, and let's. So here I have. Oh wait, here that was surfer. Let me type this in so we can actually see the hotkeys. If I want to say surfer dude speak again, I always like the surfer, and I want the surfer to talk in a limerick, and I can ask it about coding and Wolfram language. It'll, yeah. It even put some code in the limerick. I haven't seen that before. That's a good one. All right. And then if I want to use a function, the hotkey is exclamation point. I don't know if I said out loud, but hopefully you noticed that the hotkey here was hashtag or pound. Is how you type in one of these modifiers. So now if I want to say, I'm going to do biz jargonize, I'm going to select that. And what I get here is this vertical bar. So this vertical bar syntax is what separates parameters in the result. And this greater than sign means use whatever I type over here to fill this parameter slot. But I want to change to the caret, which means use whatever's in the previous cell to fill the parameter slot. So I'm going to tell it to add business jargon to that limerick. And it's, it doesn't rhyme anymore. So that's too bad, but it's pretty great. You can do, let's do another divider, and let's do a function with more than one slot. So we've used translate a couple times. Hopefully you're familiar with that. So now I can say, whatever I want. Let's go for German, and then all the content to the right. And I can say, thanks for watching this presentation. And there we go. I'm not going to try to pronounce that, despite my last name. Not a German speaker. All right. So this is sort of the important hotkeys that make all of these prompt repository things quickly and easily usable in chat notebooks. So now we've sort of covered the basics of how to use prompts from the prompt repository. But now we want to talk about creating your own prompts, right? Which is really pretty easy to do. If you've created a function for the function repository or data for the data repository, then you're hopefully familiar with the definition notebook framework. If not, this is going to be the time for you to learn it. So we have these definition notebooks, which has sort of become the standard way to define content that goes in one of these repositories that can then be distributed to Wolfram language users everywhere. But not just that, you can also use it just to sort of formally create content and attach metadata to it for your own use, so it'll be directly integrated into your Wolfram language session. Or for a team, you can use this not for publication to the whole world, but just for your particular team, or for your particular use case. And right now I have a use case where I need to create some content because I'm struggling. I'm struggling here, folks. I need rephrase text for use in a live stream. It's not easy to come up with all these words that are coming out of my mouth. So this is a function, and so I'm going to say it's a function prompt, and then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to write the actual text of the prompt. And I've done a few of these rephrasing ones, so I know that that's a good way to say it. Rephrase the following text appropriately for use in a live stream webinar. Respond only with the rephrased text and no other summary or explanation. The second sentence, something that we've learned from experience, is very useful. There's all these optional fields that I could fill in. If you're making a persona, it's important to give it an icon. And pro tip, use image synthesize, which is another AI-based tool that we've introduced. It's great at creating these icons. Tell it, make a vector graphic icon for something, and it'll do it usually does a pretty dang good job. I can introduce this post-processing if I want something that doesn't just give text back. In this case, I'm just giving text back, but you can put interpreter types in here. You can put just any code, any arbitrary code you want in here that takes the string as an input and does something. If it takes more than one argument, it's kind of important to define this documentation. So this is just like the function repository notebook. If you've used that, you kind of can tell it all about what the arguments are, what sort of things they expect. The arguments don't need to be strings either. They can be arbitrary Wolfram language expressions. And you can set up, how they're converted into strings. All right, and now I should create examples. So I always like to start with the programmatic examples just because that's kind of the way I think. So since I'm not good at these webinars, that's it. I'm done. See you later. That's how I was planning to end my talk. But I'll let this tell me better. Okay, let's see if I can remember this for later. But this should work just like in a chat notebook, right? This is the latest and greatest stuff. So sometimes you'll find bugs. If you find the bugs, report it. So then you come down here and fill out some metadata. I'm going to say this is, I wrote it, give it some keywords, seminar, presentation. These are like search terms that if somebody was looking for this thing, what would they type? This is text styling. Let's see, maybe none of these other ones. If there were other prompts in the prompt repository that were similar, I would put their name here. If there was a function in the Wolfram language that was similar, I would put it here. And this is sort of to add crosslinks, which makes it much easier for people to find your prompt, or for people using your prompt to find other stuff they're interested in. Then I'm going to go up here and hit check. This goes through and inspects all the fields in the notebook and validates them and will give me warnings. Oh, I had no mistakes. Well, let's create a mistake just in case. Let's delete that colon and hit check again, just so we can see this working. Apologies, these things don't pick up the magnification. All right, so this is telling me I should end it in a colon. There's a fix it automatically button. There we go. All right, so now I think this is probably good. I could submit it to the repository, but I don't want to wait for them before I can share it with you all. So I'm going to deploy it to my cloud account. So this doesn't put it in the public repository where it's on resources.wolframcloud.com/prompt repository. This puts it in a cloud object in my cloud account on the public cloud, where I can send that URL out to the world for anyone to use. So so here we go. Here's the live thing, and anybody with this URL could just take this, come back here, make a new notebook with some magnification, and do LLM prompt of the URL, and they get my prompt. I can apply it here and see the actual text. All right, so this is a process for creating your own prompts. It's really straightforward. This notebook makes it easy. And if you submit it to the repository, it doesn't go live right away. We have reviewers that look at these things. Typically, there's some back and forth. We really care about the names, that the names fit into our naming conventions really well. So a lot of times we'll send it back and be like, this is a good prompt, but we think it should be named such and such. Or they'll give you advice about how to clean up your actual prompt to make it more effective. That sort of thing. So there's a lot of times there's a back and forth during the review process. And then eventually it'll get published in the prompt repository for the whole world to use. This is such an emerging field. We've put out almost 200 prompts in the prompt repository now. Let's take a look at the prompt repository again. All right. Well, we'll skip browsing the website again for now. So yeah, you can, we have not found all the good ideas for prompts is where I'm getting at. You will have lots of ideas that we didn't have, and we want you to submit them because this is all brand new. No one knows what the whole world of prompts looks like. All right, so that summarizes the prompt repository and using prompts in the Wolfram language, both programmatically and in chat notebooks. So I want to preview the next exciting thing in this world, and that's tools. Teo mentioned earlier that we have tools, and he turned them off for the sake of simplicity in his presentation because it makes it much easier to understand what's going on when there aren't tools, making it more exciting but also more complicated. So what is a tool? A tool is a new feature in Wolfram language that you can use with LLMs that turns what used to be sort of a one-time conversation between the Wolfram language and the LLM, where you send a prompt and it sends a response, into a back and forth conversation. So the way it works is this 6-step process. Wolfram language calls the LLM, tells it what tools there are, and it asks for a response to a prompt. And then the LLM can decide to use the tool to help create its response. And then the LLM, instead of responding to the prompt right away, it responds with what we call a tool call. So it says, I want to use the tool, and it says how it wants to use the tool. The Wolfram language then takes that tool call and it runs the tool. So it evaluates some code in your local Wolfram language environment and generates a response. And then it sends that response along with all of the history of the whole conversation up to that point back to the LLM. And then the LLM does what it does. It will probably generate the response, but it might call the tool again. It might call a different tool if you have more than one tool. Eventually, it does all the tool calls it needs, and it generates a response to the original prompt and returns it. All right. So that was confusing. Can you show me an example? Sure thing. So here's code that's pretty simple. It's going to pop open a dialog and release some held code if I think it's safe. Otherwise, it's going to tell the LLM that I decided not to. So I'm going to take this function and I'm going to build a tool around it. So I have an LLM tool. It's named calculate. This is a little message telling the LLM what it can do. And this is telling the LLM what the parameters are to pass to it. So it wants one parameter called math, and it's going to interpret that as a held math expression. This is an interpreter type that's been around for a few versions now. So this is a pre-existing thing. Right, so I can define a tool. So now I have this tool called calculate tool. And then we use LM synthesize, and there's an option LM evaluator where I can tell it what tools are available. So I say calculate tool. And then I also put this all in here, which isn't really important, except that it's going to allow us to understand what's happening. I'm going to leave full screen so that when I get that dialogue, I'll actually see it. All right, so it's saying, do I want to evaluate this? I'll say yes. And now it's using the tool again. That's surprising. Not sure why. Okay. Oh, third time. I don't know what there was a D in there too. All right, it's not doing very well. All right, I'm gonna abort this. All right, something's. All right, I'm aborting that. Things are not going as smoothly as I would like. Let's look at the one with the saved output. So here we get. So it should have popped up with some math, asking me if I wanted to evaluate it. I would say yes. Let me magnify here. And then we get our result, and it will explain everything. And it'll have a number that's actually right instead of something that was just sort of fabricated within the brain of the LLM. And we can dive into this and see, okay, what did it ask us? Okay, it asked us this. Okay, what did we respond with? Okay, we responded with this. And then you can even look at the full conversation, which is, written more for our robot overlords than for us. But you can kind of look into this and see exactly everything that happened along the way. So hopefully that makes more sense. All right, that's it. That's amazing, Bob. I get it. Is there more to know? Yes, there's more to know. And that's what's coming soon. That's why this slide is titled Coming Soon, is that we're built, just like we built a whole bunch of conveniences and tools and behaviors, lowercase t tools and behaviors around prompts. We're doing the same thing for LLM tools. So this is going to work in chat notebooks. This is going to work programmatically really well. There's going to be predefined tools that are made available via a repository with a website. And all that stuff is coming in the coming weeks. So with that, I will wrap up. Oh, wait, no, what am I supposed to say? See, I prepared for this. And with that, I conclude my part. Thank you all for joining. And until next time, take care and goodbye. But don't leave. We can do questions.